Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevayam Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, text number 16. Krishna is further speaking to Arjuna. Dvabhimo purusho loke ksharaschaksharev cha kshara sarvani bhutani kutastho akshar uchyate. There are two classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible. And in the spiritual world, every living entity is called infallible. As already explained, the Lord in his incarnation as Vyasadeva compiled the Vedanta Sutra. Here the Lord is giving in summary the contents of the Vedanta Sutra. He says that the living entities who are innumerable can be divided into two classes, the fallible and the infallible. The living entities are eternally separated parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of God. When they are in contact with the material world, they are called Jiva Bhuta. In the Sanskrit words given here, Kshara Sarvani Bhutani means that they are fallible. Those who are in oneness with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, are called infallible. Oneness does not mean that they have no individuality, but there is no disunity. Oneness does not mean they have no individuality. Means oneness doesn't mean we're going to merge and lose our individuality. It means there is no disunity. There is no difference in purpose or desires. They're all agreeable to the purpose of the creation. Of course, in the spiritual world, there is no such thing as creation. But since the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as stated in the Vedanta Sutra, is the source of all emanations, that conception is explained. So creation, like in spiritual world, it's all eternally the same, eternal, everything is eternal. There is no such thing as creation and destruction. But as explained in Prabhupada, as explained in Vedanta Sutra, Krishna is the source of all emanations. Even in Bhagavad Gita, he says, Aham Sarvasya Prabhava, everything comes from me, means everything. There is some creation, even in the material world, but the Jivas and the Spirit and the Supreme Lord, there is a unity in the spiritual world. According to the statement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, there are two classes of living entities. The Vedas give evidence of this, so there is no doubt about it. The living entities who are struggling in this world with the mind and five senses have their material bodies, which are changing. As long as the living entity is conditioned, his body changes due to contact with matter. Matter is changing, so the living entity appears to be changing. But in the spiritual world, the body is not made of matter. Therefore, there is no change. So it's all eternal in the spiritual world. Here in the material world, we have the bodies, mind, senses, and they're always changing because it's all material. In the material world, the living entity undergoes 6 changes: birth, growth, duration, reproduction, then dwindling and vanishing. These are the changes of the material body. But in the spiritual world, the body does not change at all. There is no old age, there is no birth, there is no death, and there is no question of any disease. They all exist in oneness. Kshara Sarvani Bhutani. Any living entity who has come in contact with matter, beginning from the first created being Brahma, down to a small ant is changing its body. Therefore, they're all fallible in the spiritual world. However, they're always liberated in oneness, oneness of desire, so oneness of the purpose. So in the spiritual world, all the jivas, here Krishna says, everybody is infallible, means achyuta, they don't fall down, or akshar. And in the material world, everybody is fallible. But then the question is, we all came from the spiritual world. So we were infallible and then we became fallible. But what happened? So Prabhupada explains nicely, in the spiritual world, every living entity has oneness with the Supreme. Oneness means same purpose. There is no disagreement. But as soon as somehow or other we develop disagreement for whatever reason, Prabhupada somehow never explained that reason, or we developed enviousness, means we become fallible, means we have to come to the material world. In the material world, everybody is fallible. Everybody is fallible means what? The soul is not going to fall. Nothing can happen to the soul. Soul is part and parcel of Krishna. But we get a material body and we identify ourselves with the material body, and the material body keeps on changing. It takes birth, it gets old, it gets diseased, and it dies. And there are 6 changes even in the material body. Takes birth, grows, remains at some stage, produces byproducts, dwindles and vanishes. But the same jiva, when he understands he is not fallible, he is not this material body, and he develops this oneness with the Supreme. Oneness with the Supreme does not mean losing our individuality or merging in Brahm Jyoti. Oneness in the Supreme means having the same purpose. So then we are reinstated in our position as infallible. Next shloka. I think in this shloka it is explained a little bit more. No, it's not explained there. Difference is explained. So in this purport only, when Prabhupada is explaining, those who are in oneness with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, are called infallible. Oneness does not mean that they have no individuality, but there is no disunity. They are all agreeable, means there is no disunity. There is only one purpose of everybody in the spiritual world is to please Krishna. Not to please ourselves, not to please our senses. We have spiritual senses. It's not in spiritual body. There are no senses. They're all spiritual senses. But the purpose is only one of every living entity to serve Krishna, to please Krishna. In the process, the living entity gets much more pleasure than he desires or he expects. That's a different story. That's the mercy of Krishna. But the purpose is all one, to please Krishna, to serve Krishna. Text 17. Uttamah purushas tvanyah parmatmeti udahritah yo lokutrayam avishya vibharti avyaya ishvaraha. Besides these two, there is the greatest living personality, the Supreme Soul, the imperishable Lord Himself, who has entered the 3 worlds and is maintaining them. Now, besides these two, means the fallible jiva, the jivas in the material world, and the jivas in the spiritual world, there is Supreme Lord Krishna. The idea of this verse is very nicely explained in the Katha Upanishad and Shruta Upanishad. It's clearly stated there that above the innumerable living entities, some of whom are conditioned and some of whom are liberated, there is a Supreme Personality who is Paramatma. The Upanishadic verse runs as follows: Nitya Nityanam Chetnas Chetnanam. The purport is that amongst all the living entities, both conditioned and liberated, there is one Supreme Living Personality, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who maintains them and gives them all the facility of enjoying according to different work. That Supreme Personality of Godhead is situated in everyone's heart as Paramatma. A wise man who can understand him is eligible to attain perfect peace, not others. This is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is, of course, he has many other activities, and one activity he does is he maintains every living entity, whether fallible or infallible, means the material or spiritual world, and gives them the opportunity, facility of enjoyment according to different work. And he's also situated in everybody's heart as Paramatma. And as Paramatma, he has different roles to play as a witness, as a sanctioner, as a guide. He's doing everything. Test 18. Yasmat aksharam atito aham aksharadapi cha uttamaha ato asmi loke vede cha pratita purushottamaha. Because I am transcendental, beyond both the fallible and the infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that Supreme Person. So here Krishna again clearly is telling his position. Just like previously he said, Aham sarvasya prabhava, mattah paratram nanyat, there is no one superior to me. Everything comes from me. And here again he is claiming he is the Supreme Lord himself. I don't know how the commentators can miss this thing. No one can surpass the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, neither the conditioned soul nor the liberated soul. He is therefore the greatest of personalities. Now it's clear here that the living entities in the Supreme Personality of Godhead are individuals. The difference is that the living entities, either in the conditioned state or in the liberated state, cannot surpass in quantity the inconceivable potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is incorrect to think of the Supreme Lord and the living entities as being on the same level or equal in all respects. There is always a question of superiority and inferiority between the personalities. The word Uttam is very significant. No one can surpass that Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he is like one of his name is Asamardhava, and he says, I'm Uttam, I'm Purush Uttama. He says that Supreme Personality. Uttam means nobody can surpass him. The word Loke signifies in this Paurusha Agam in the Smriti scriptures as confirmed in the Nirukti dictionary. The purpose of the Vedas is explained by the Smriti scriptures. The Supreme Lord in his localized aspect of Paramatma is also described in the Vedas themselves. The following verse appears in the Vedas. The Supreme Super Soul coming out of the body enters the impersonal Brahmjyoti. Then in his form, he remains in his spiritual identity. That Supreme is called the Supreme Personality. This means that the Supreme Personality is exhibiting and diffusing his spiritual effulgence, which is the ultimate illumination. That Supreme Personality also has a localized aspect as Paramatma. By incarnating himself as the son of Satyavati and Parashar, he explains Vedic knowledge as Vyasadeva. So here Krishna, of course, Prabhupada is explaining in different ways about Krishna's position as Supreme Personality. And he says from him comes Paramatma and then the Brahman or Brahmjyoti. But in the shloka itself, it says, Krishna says, I am beyond both the fallible and infallible living entities. I'm the greatest. I'm celebrated in both in the world and in the Vedas as that Supreme Person. So he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yo mamevam asammudo jnanati purushottamam ya sarva vid bhajati mam sarva bhavena bharata Whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is a knower of everything. He therefore engages himself in full devotion service to me, O son of Bharat. So again and again, the same theme is repeating. He says, I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you have to engage in devotional service of me. So sarva vid bhajati. Again, the word bhajati has come. Sarva vid. Vid means know. One who knows everything about me. What does he do? He bhajati ma. He does devotion service. He does my bhajan. Bhajan means devotion service. He renders devotion service. I don't know how this Gyanvadis and Karmvadis, they come up with their different commentaries on this or different interpretation. Here Krishna is clearly saying, there are many philosophical speculations about the constitutional position of the living entities and the supreme absolute truth. Now in this verse, the Supreme Personality of Godhead clearly explains that anyone who knows Lord Krishna to be the Supreme Person is actually the knower of everything. There are so many people all over the world. They say, this is supreme, that is supreme, Ganesha is supreme, Shiva is supreme, Indra is supreme, Hanumanji is supreme, Allah is supreme, or this is supreme, that is supreme, Jesus is supreme. They never said that. Nowhere in the scripture we'll find they themselves are saying, I am supreme. Here Krishna is clearly saying he is supreme, and those who know this, that I am the supreme person, they worship me with devotional service. They render devotional service unto me. The imperfect knower goes on simply speculating about the absolute truth, but the perfect knower, without wasting his valuable time, engages directly in Krishna consciousness, the devotion service of the Supreme Lord. Throughout the whole of Bhagavad Gita, this fact is being stressed at every step. And still there are so many stubborn commentators on Bhagavad Gita who consider the supreme absolute truth and the living entities to be one and the same. Vedic knowledge is called Shruti, learning by oral reception. One should actually receive the Vedic message from authorities like Krishna and his representatives. Here Krishna distinguishes everything very nicely, and one should hear from this source. Simply to hear like the hogs is not sufficient. One must be able to understand from the authorities. It's not that one should simply speculate academically. One should submissively hear from Bhagavad Gita that these living entities are always subordinate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone who is able to understand this according to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, knows the purpose of the Vedas. No one else knows the purpose of the Vedas. So Vedic knowledge, very important. Study of Vedas, very, very important. Speculation is the most unimportant or useless thing to do. We study Vedas under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. Then we get the right knowledge, right meaning of the Vedas. We can understand the essence of Vedas, we can get to. And the essence of Vedas, Krishna says in 15th shloka, by all Vedas I am to be known. Sarvasya chaham riddhi sannivittu. In that verse, he says, Matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha. Vedesha sarver aham e vedyo vedant krit ved vedesha. Vedesha sarver aham eva vedyo. By all the Vedas, aham, me, eva, certainly vedyo to be known. From all the Vedas, I am the only one to be known. Eva, he says Eva. Eva means certainly, definitely, without a doubt. Here also Prabhupada is writing, anyone who is able to understand this, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He knows the purpose of the Vedas and who serves Lord Krishna with the right mood. The word bhajati is very significant. In many places, the word bhajati is expressed in relationship with the service of the Supreme Lord. If a person is engaged in full Krishna consciousness, in the devotion service of the Lord, it is to be understood that he has understood all the Vedic knowledge. In the Vaishnava Parampara, it is said that if one is engaged in the devotion service of Krishna, then there is no need for any other spiritual process for understanding the supreme absolute truth. See, another thing, in Vaishnava Parampara, it is that if one is engaged in devotion service, there is no need for any other spiritual process for understanding the supreme absolute truth. Devotion service is the top. It's a perfect way of knowing Krishna. He has already come to the point because he is engaged in the devotion service of the Lord. So one who knows Krishna, automatically he will engage himself in his service. He has ended all the preliminary processes of understanding. But if anyone, after speculating for hundreds and thousands of lives, does not come to the point that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that one has to surrender there, all his speculation for so many years and lives is a useless waste of time. So all we have to do somehow or other, following a bona fide spiritual master, come to this understanding. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the job or the position of his soul or living entity is to serve him and engages himself in his service. That's it. This is the essence of all the Vedas. Just like in Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami says. Of course, this is not in Nectar of Devotion, but it comes from some other place. It's quoted in Nectar of Devotion. There are only two principles of mentioned in the Vedas. So the purpose we know. The principles are, there are only two. All the Vedic texts, all the Vedic knowledge, it just boils down to two principles. And Rupa Goswami says that one should always remember Krishna, of course, favorably, lovingly, devotedly, and never forget Krishna. That's all. There's only two principles. Somebody say, oh, they sound like only one principle. No, if he had just said always remember Krishna, so somebody could have argued, oh, there might be some time we don't have to remember him. But then Rupa Goswami stresses on the negative part also. Do always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. Of course, that remembrance has to be with love and devotion and favorable attitude. That is the whole purpose of Vedas. Whole soul purpose. And how to remember him, that's a different story. If we are serving him with love and devotion, just like Yashoda Maya or Radharani or other gopis, or cowherd boyfriends of Krishna, they can never forget Krishna. Never. So devotion service is the only way to remember him favorably. So devotion service consists of 9 steps, 9 processes, Navvidha Bhakti. So if we do all 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, only 1, that's okay, enough, good enough to remember him. But we try to do all 9, so we don't have any space for Maya to enter or time for Maya to enter. That will make us forget Krishna. Maya means illusion. So illusion can make us forget Krishna. Krishna is there, Jiva is there, but the connection gets kind of obscured. So all we have to do is always, at every step of the day, at every second of our time, always remember Krishna favorably. Text 20th. So why all this talk? Because this chapter is the yoga of the Supreme Person, Purushottam Yoga. And we had read about that Ashwath tree, the banyan tree, and what are the description of all the stem of all the branches, of the leaves, of the twigs, and lower branches, and higher branches, and the roots, and so many other things. So the purpose was to asanga shastrena chitva, means cut the branches or the roots or the whole tree with the weapon of detachment. And detachment comes when we are attached ourselves, when we attach ourselves to Krishna. How do we attach ourselves? Hey, Krishna is explaining, I am the Supreme Lord. Do the devotion service, bhajati. Once we are attached to Krishna, definitely we get detached from the material world. And once we are detached from the material world, it's very easy to cut down that ashwath tree, the banyan tree of the material world. And then we are free. Krishna is just giving some hints about his spiritual world, about his position. Because all this talk is to make Arjuna fight that war. That's the whole purpose of this talk. But fight in the right consciousness. So, so Arjuna, if he was thinking that with the fight, he'll get implicated in the material world, because he'll be fighting for the kingdom. He'll be fighting because thinking that his grandfather, his guru, and his cousins, or the other party members or the other warriors are his enemies. So attachment and what is called loathing or hating are basically two sides of the same coin. So he might be thinking, I'll get attached, I'll get entangled in the material world. Krishna saying, no, think of me, do this service for me. You will always remain detached. There are just different ways by which Krishna is trying to make him understand. Text 20. Iti guya tamam shastram idam uktam mayanaka etat buddha buddhimanas syat krita krityascha bharata. This is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, and it is disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. The Lord clearly explains here that this is the substance of all revealed scriptures. And one should understand this as it is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus one will become intelligent and perfect in transcendental knowledge. In other words, by understanding this philosophy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engaging in his transcendental service, everyone can become free from the contamination of the modes of material nature. So modes of material nature, we explained in the previous chapter, 14th chapter. Because Bhakt, Bhagwan and Bhakti, they're all at the spiritual level. Nothing is material. So one can become freed from the contaminations of modes of material nature by engaging in devotional service. Devotional service is a process of spiritual understanding. Wherever devotional service exists, the material contamination cannot exist. Devotional service to the Lord and the Lord himself are one and the same because they're all spiritual. Devotional service takes place within the internal energy of the Supreme Lord. The Lord is said to be the sun, and ignorance is called darkness. Where the sun is present, there is no question of darkness. And that's what Prabhupada wrote on Back to Godhead magazine. Krishna Surya Sama, Maya hai andhakar. So Krishna is like sun, lots of full of illumination, and Maya is like darkness. So even if the sun wants to meet darkness, it cannot, because wherever the sun goes, darkness is removed. Where the sun is present, there is no question of darkness. Therefore, whenever devotion service is present, under the proper guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, there is no question of ignorance. So devotion service, bhakti, bhajan is very, very important, but it has to be done in the proper guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. Otherwise, it can become sahajism, or it can lead to other things which are not a bhakti. So the proper guidance is very important. Everyone must take to this consciousness of Krishna and engage in devotion service to become intelligent and purified. Unless one comes to this position of understanding Krishna and engages in devotion service, however intelligent he may be in the estimation of some common men, he is not perfectly intelligent. So the intelligent person takes shelter of Krishna and performs devotion service unto him. Because Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Gyanvan Mam Prapadyate. After many, many lifetimes, one who has really attained knowledge, he surrenders unto me. The word anagha, by which Arjuna is addressed, is significant. Anagha, or a sinless one, means that unless one is free from all sinful reactions, it's very difficult to understand Krishna. One has to become free from all contamination, all sinful activities. Then he can understand. But devotion service is so pure and potent that once one is engaged in devotion service, he automatically comes to the stage of sinlessness. So one has to become anagha, free from all sins, to understand Krishna. But Prabhupada saying, just engage yourself in devotion service. This is so powerful that one will definitely come to the stage of sinlessness. Not even to the stage of no harm, but he will come to the stage of not even an intention of committing a sin. That's even a high stage. While one is performing devotion service in the association of pure devotees in full Krishna consciousness, there are certain things which require to be vanquished altogether. The most important thing one has to surmount is the weakness of the heart. The first fall down is caused by the desire to lord it over material nature. Thus one gives up the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The second weakness of the heart is that as one increases the propensity to lord it over material nature, he becomes attached to matter and the possession of matter. The problems of material existence are due to these weaknesses of the heart. In this chapter, first 5 verses describe the process of freeing oneself from these weaknesses of heart. And the rest of the chapter, from the 6th verse through the end, discusses Purushottam Yoga. So all one has to do, understand who is Krishna, what's his position, and engage himself in devotion service in such a way that he always remembers Krishna and never forgets Krishna. And that's when all his sins, or even the desire to commit sins, that will go away. Not just go away, it will be burnt down. No more such desires. So that is that is the real purpose of the Vedas and the real goal of human life. And it removes all the weaknesses from the heart. First weakness is that I want to lord it over, and second weakness is one becomes attached to matter. When one desires to lord it over the material nature, or one wants to enjoy like Krishna, he falls down. And when he falls down, he gets attached to the material nature. So much so that he doesn't want to get out. So here ends the 15th chapter. I'll stop here, see anybody has any questions or comments. Hmm. So, what do we do? Should we stop here and take up the 16th chapter next Saturday? Okay, you all have a wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Jai Shri Prabhupada.